Dr. Valtara moved her long, thin fingers across the glowing screen in front of her. The blue light from the display lit up her pale face as she looked at information about a faraway planet. This planet was called Terra 3, and it was unlike anything she had ever studied before. She worked in a big space station called Nexus Research Station. Her job was to study planets that should not have any life on them. These planets were so dangerous that nothing should be able to live there. But somehow, some planets did have life, and scientists called these places Deathworlds. The room around her was quiet, except for the soft humming of machines. Holographic images floated in the air, showing her all kinds of scary information about Terra 3. The air on that planet would burn the skin of most aliens. The weather changed from freezing cold to burning hot in ways that would kill almost every known species in the galaxy. The gravity was so strong it would crush most beings flat. But the strangest thing was that intelligent creatures lived on this deadly world. They called themselves humans, and they had built cities, made art, and created technology. It seemed impossible, but the data did not lie. "This is amazing," she said quietly to Kerbin, her research helper. Kerbin was from a water planet, and he breathed through gill slits on the sides of his neck. These slits opened and closed as he got excited about their work. "Look at these body scans," Dr. Valtora continued, pointing at the floating images. "These humans have hearts that are much stronger than ours. They have backup organs in case some of their body parts get damaged, and their brains seem to ignore pain that would make us pass out." For 20 years, Dr. Valtara had been the galaxy's top expert on Deathworld life forms. Other scientists from across the universe read her research papers and came to hear her speak at conferences. She had written books about how life could survive in impossible places, but all of her work had been guessing and thinking. She had never actually met a creature from a death world that was about to change. The Galactic Council was a group of leaders from different planets who made important decisions. They had been watching Terra 3 from far away for many years, trying to decide if it was safe to make contact with the humans. Finally, after long debates and careful planning, they had decided to try talking to these strange creatures. Dr. Valtara had immediately asked to be part of this historic moment. She wanted to lead the team that would study these humans up close. This was the chance she had dreamed about her entire career. Instead of just looking at data and making guesses, she would be able to see a real Deathworlder with her own eyes. "The human representative will arrive here next week," Kerbin told her. His gill slits fluttered faster when he was nervous or excited, and right now they were moving very quickly. "His name is Dr. Jiho Kim. The reports say he studies old civilizations and artifacts from other planets." Dr. Valtara felt her tentacles move with excitement. Her species showed emotions through these long, flexible arms that grew from their backs. When she was happy or excited, the tentacles would curl and twist. When she was calm, they would hang straight down. She walked over to another screen that showed pictures of Terra 3. The planet looked beautiful from space, with blue oceans and white clouds, but she knew that underneath this pretty appearance was a world that would kill her in minutes. The air pressure alone would crush her bones. The radiation from their sun would burn her skin. The weather patterns included storms with winds that moved faster than spacecraft. How do they do it? She wondered out loud. How does any living thing survive on a planet that tries to kill everything? For years, she had studied the theoretical answers to these questions. Her research suggested that humans had evolved special abilities. Their blood could carry more oxygen than normal. Their bones were much denser and harder to break. Their skin could handle temperature changes that would kill other species. Their muscles were designed for a high-gravity environment. But reading about these things and seeing them in person would be completely different experiences. Dr. Velter had met creatures from many different planets. Some were very tall, some were very short. Some had fur, some had scales, some had smooth skin like hers. Some were very smart, Some were just average, but all of them came from planets that were safe and comfortable. Planets with gentle weather, breathable air, and reasonable gravity. Never before had she met someone from a world that was actively trying to kill its inhabitants every single day. I wonder what he will be like, she said to Kerbin. Will he be aggressive? Will he be dangerous? Will we be able to communicate with him safely? Her tentacles curled with nervous excitement as she imagined meeting this Dr. Jiho Kim. After decades of studying Deathworlders from a safe distance, she was finally going to meet one face to face. She hoped she was ready for whatever that might mean. The transport shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss, and Dr. Veltara watched carefully as the first human she had ever seen stepped onto Nexus Station. She had imagined this moment for weeks, wondering what a creature from a death world would look like. Dr. Jiho Kim walked out slowly and calmly, like he was arriving at a university meeting rather than making first contact with alien species. Dr. Veltara blinked her large eyes in surprise. He looked so normal. He was not very tall or very short. He was not muscular like a warrior or scary like a monster. He just looked like any other intelligent being she might meet at a science conference. The human had dark hair and wore simple clothes that reminded her of what researchers wore in laboratories. His face was calm and friendly. He carried a small bag and looked around the station with the curious expression of someone interested in learning new things. Welcome to Nexus Station, Dr. Veltara said. A small device around her neck changed her words into human language so Dr. Kim could understand her. I hope your trip here was comfortable. Oh yes, very smooth, Dr. Kim answered with a small smile. The only thing that felt different was the artificial gravity. It feels about 15% lighter than what I am used to at home. Double quotes, Dr. Veltara's tentacles twitched with confusion. This human was talking about gravity differences like they were minor details. On her home planet, even a 5% change in gravity would make everyone feel sick for days. Over the next few days, Dr. Veltara and her team asked Dr. Kim many questions about his home planet. They wanted to understand how humans survived on such a dangerous world. But every answer made her more confused. Tell us about the weather on Earth, she asked during one of their meetings. The weather can be hard to predict, Dr. Kim said in his quiet voice. Sometimes we get big storms with winds that blow at 200 kilometers per hour, but you learn to get ready for that kind of thing. Kerbin's translator device made strange beeping sounds as it tried to make sense of what Dr. Kim had said. Winds that fast would destroy most cities in the galaxy. Such storms would kill thousands of aliens and flatten entire settlements. But this human talked about them like they were just something annoying that happened sometimes. What about earthquakes? Dr. Veltara asked. Her research had shown that Tirathri had very unstable ground that moved and shook regularly. The ground shakes once in a while, Dr. Kim said with a small shrug. We just build our houses to handle it. My city is near a place where the ground moves a lot, so we feel tremors, maybe once a month. You just learn to live with it. Double quotes, Dr. Veltara stared at him. Earthquakes that happened once a month would make most planets uninhabitable. Her own species would abandon any world that shook even once a year. But Dr. Kim talked about monthly earthquakes, like they were just part of normal life. What about the radiation from your sun? Kerbin asked. Our instruments show that it sends out energy that would burn most species. We use sunscreen when we go outside for long periods, Dr. Kim replied. Some people get sunburns if they are not careful, but it is usually not a big problem. The aliens looked at each other with confusion. Sunscreen. This human was talking about protection from deadly radiation, like it was something you could fix with a simple cream. As the days went by, Dr. Veltara began to doubt everything she had learned. Maybe her research was wrong. Maybe humans were not the super-strong Deathworld survivors she had imagined. Maybe Tirathri was not as dangerous as her instruments had suggested. Dr. Kim seemed like a normal, gentle person who liked to study old, things and learn about other cultures. He was polite and friendly. He asked thoughtful questions about alien civilizations. He seemed interested in art and history. He did not seem like someone who had spent his entire life fighting to survive on a world that wanted to kill him. Perhaps our models were incorrect. Dr. Veltara said to Kerbin one evening after Dr. Kim had gone to his guest quarters. Maybe we misunderstood the data about Terra 3, but the measurements are clear, Kerbin replied, his gill slits fluttering with confusion. That planet should be impossible to live on. Then maybe humans are just very good at adapting, Dr. Veltara said. Maybe they are not as tough as we thought, but they are smart enough to build technology that protects them. During their conversations, Dr. Kim had mentioned cities with millions of people, farms that grew food, and schools where children learned safely. He talked about art museums, music concerts, and peaceful parks where families went to relax. It all sounded so normal and civilized. Dr. Veltara began to think that maybe she had wasted 20 years of her life studying something that was not as amazing as she had believed. Maybe Deathworlders were just regular people who happened to live on a slightly more challenging planet. She had no idea how wrong she was, and how soon she would discover the truth about what humans really were when everything safe and comfortable was stripped away. The loud alarm sounds started screaming through Nexus Station on a quiet Tuesday morning. Dr. Kim had been on the station for 3 weeks now, and everything had been peaceful and normal. The aliens were doing their tests and asking their questions, and Dr. Kim was happy to help them learn about humans. But now something was very wrong. All people go to emergency positions immediately, a computer voice said over the speakers. Red lights flashed on and off in all the hallways, making everything look scary and dangerous. The main reactor is breaking down. Gravity machines are not working. Air cleaning systems are damaged. Dr. Veltara had been in her laboratory when the alarms started. She was looking at some test results with Dr. Kim when suddenly the whole station began to shake. The computer screens flickered and went dark. Then the lights went out at first. She thought this was just a small problem that the station's repair systems would fix quickly. But as the minutes passed, things got worse and worse. The artificial gravity that kept everyone's feet on the floor started acting crazy. One moment, Dr. Veltara felt herself becoming very light, almost floating in the air. The next moment, she felt like a giant hand was pushing her down to the floor with terrible force. Equipment and furniture flew around the room, crashing into walls and breaking into pieces. Heavy metal doors slammed shut all around the station, trapping people in different sections. Dr. Veltara found herself locked in the research area, with Dr. Kim and 3 other alien scientists. Dr. Nextar was a tall, thin creature with purple skin. Professor Yilwin looked like a walking tree with many small branches for arms. Research assistant Birkin was young and had bright blue fur covering his body. The air in the room began to smell terrible. Poisonous gases were leaking through the air vents from damaged parts of the station. Dr. Veltara's throat began to burn, and her eyes started to water. The temperature in the room went from comfortable to very hot, then to freezing cold, then hot again. The escape pods are broken. Kerbin's voice came through the communication system, but the sound was full of static and hard to understand. There is a big hole in Section 7. Air is leaking out into space. Double quotes. Dr. Veltara felt her hands shaking. Her whole body was trembling with fear. Her species came from a planet where everything was calm and safe. The weather never changed much. The ground never shook. The air was always clean and easy to breathe when dangerous things happened. Her people's natural response was to find a safe place and wait for the danger to go away. But there was no safe place now. The entire station was becoming a death trap. The emergency lights went out completely, leaving them in darkness except for the orange and red glow coming from broken electrical panels that were shooting sparks. The sparks lit up the room in quick flashes, showing scared alien faces and floating debris. Dr. Nexstar made a high whining sound that meant he was terrified. Professor Yilwyn's branch arms were wrapped around her tree-trunk body, and she was rocking back and forth. Birkin had curled up into a ball in the corner, his blue fur standing up with fear. Dr. Valterra pressed her back against the wall and tried to think. Her scientific mind wanted to analyze the problem and find solutions, but her body was frozen with panic. Every time the gravity changed, sending her floating toward the ceiling or crashing down to the floor, she felt more helpless. The toxic air was getting thicker. She could barely breathe. The radiation levels were climbing higher and higher as the reactor continued to fail. Soon, the radiation would be strong enough to kill them all, even if they could somehow fix the air and gravity problems. She looked around at Dr. Kim, expecting to see him as scared and helpless as the rest of them. After all, he was just a gentle academic who studied old artifacts. He had seemed so normal and peaceful during his time on the station. Surely he would be just as frightened as everyone else. But when the next spark from a broken panel lit up the room, Dr. Valterra saw something that confused her. Dr. Kim was not cowering in fear like the aliens. He was not shaking or making scared noises. He was standing calmly in the middle of the chaos, and his eyes were moving around the room like he was studying the situation and making plans. The station shook again with another system failure. More poisonous gas poured through the vents. The gravity fluctuated wildly, sending broken equipment flying through the air. The temperature spiked so high that Dr. Valterra felt like her skin might burn. But Dr. Kim just stood there, steady and calm, like he was waiting for something. Dr. Valterra had no idea that she was about to see what 20 years of academic research had failed to teach her about Deathworlders. She was about to discover what humans really were when everything safe and predictable disappeared in 1 second. Everything about Dr. Kim changed completely. The quiet, gentle man who had been asking polite questions about alien culture suddenly became something else entirely. Dr. Valterra watched in shock as his whole body seemed to wake up. His back became straight and strong. His movements became smooth and sure. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear, cutting through all the noise and panic like a sharp knife. "Everyone stay calm," he said, and somehow his words made Dr. Valterra feel like maybe they could survive this nightmare. "Valterra, I need you to show me the maps of this station. Nexstar, can your people breathe when there is not much oxygen in the air?" While the aliens were still frozen with fear, unable to think. Clearly, Dr. Kim was already moving around the room. The crazy artificial gravity kept changing, making everything in the room float up to the ceiling one moment and then crash down with crushing force the next moment. This kind of gravity change would break the bones of most creatures in the galaxy. But Dr. Kim walked through it like it was nothing. When the gravity tried to push him down with the force of a falling building, he just bent his knees and kept walking. When it made him float toward the ceiling, he used his hands to push off the walls and guide himself where he wanted to go. A broken pipe in the wall suddenly burst open, spraying superheated gas into the hallway outside their room. The gas was hot enough to melt metal. Dr. Kim looked at it for just a moment, then took a deep breath and walked straight through the burning cloud. His clothes started to smoke and burn, but he did not slow down or change direction. He just held his breath and kept walking until he was through it. "The controls to fix the air system are 3 sections away from here," he said. Like walking through burning gas was a normal thing to do. He picked up Professor Yilwyn, who had fainted from fear, and lifted her onto his shoulders. She was much larger than him, but he carried her weight easily. "I will need to carry anyone who cannot handle the radiation." Dr. Valterra looked at the radiation meter on the wall. The numbers were climbing higher and higher, far beyond what any known species could survive. The radiation in the station was now strong enough to kill most creatures in minutes. But Dr. Kim just ignored it. and kept working. She watched in amazement as he began taking apart broken machines and putting the pieces together in new ways. His hands moved quickly and steadily, even though alarms were screaming warnings about how dangerous everything had become. The air was full of poison. The temperature was jumping from freezing cold to burning hot. The radiation was getting stronger every minute. But Dr. Kim's hands never shook, and he never stopped working. Then something even more impossible happened. A hole opened in the wall of the next section, and all the air began rushing out into space. This meant that area now had no air to breathe at all. Dr. Kim looked at the hole, then calmly took off his jacket and wrapped it around his face to cover his nose and mouth. Then he walked into the section with no air. Dr. Valterra counted the minutes on her watch. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes. Dr. Kim was working in a place with no air for nearly 10 minutes, fixing the hole with tools he had made from broken pieces of equipment. When he finally came back, he was breathing hard but otherwise seemed fine. This was not just about staying alive. This was about solving problems and fixing things while everything around him was trying to kill him. Dr. Kim moved through their worst nightmare like he was doing ordinary repair work. The deadly radiation, the poisonous air, the crushing gravity, the burning gas, none of it seemed to bother him much. He worked methodically, like a mechanic fixing a broken car. First, he stopped the air from leaking out. Then he rerouted power to get the gravity working properly. Then he bypassed the damaged systems to get clean air flowing again, all while carrying unconscious aliens to safety and making sure everyone stayed together. Dr. Valterra realized that what seemed like an impossible disaster to her was probably similar to a bad storm on Dr. Kim's home planet. The things that were making her and her colleagues panic with terror were just ordinary problems that humans dealt with regularly. She had spent 20 years studying humans from a distance, reading about their strong hearts and dense bones and radiation tolerance. But she had missed the most important thing about them. It was not just that their bodies could survive terrible conditions. It was that their minds stayed calm and focused when everything was going wrong. Dr. Kim was not just surviving this crisis. He was fixing it, step by step, like he had done this kind of thing many times before. And maybe, Dr. Valterra thought, as she watched him work, he had. On a Deathworld, maybe disasters like this happened so often that humans had learned to treat them as just another day at work. 6 hours later, the emergency was over. The station's backup systems had finally started working again. Repair teams from other parts of the galaxy had arrived to fix the damaged sections. The red warning lights had stopped flashing, and the normal white lights were back on. The air was clean again, and the artificial gravity was working properly. Dr. Valterra sat in the medical center, watching Dr. Kim receive treatment from the alien doctors. The medical machines beeped and hummed as they scanned his body, checking for damage from the radiation and poisonous gases. His burns are very minor, the medical doctor told Dr. Valterra. The radiation exposure should have killed him, but somehow his body handled it well. His heart rate and breathing are like someone who just finished a light walk, not someone who almost died. Dr. Kim sat quietly on the medical bed, letting the doctors put healing gel on his small burns. He looked tired but not worried. When Dr. Valterra approached him, he smiled, the same friendly smile he had shown her when he first arrived at the station. "That was quite an adventure," he said in his usual quiet voice. "I am glad everyone made it through okay. It reminded me of the time our power systems failed back home during a big storm. Very similar problems to solve, really." Dr. Valterra stared at him. He was talking about the worst disaster in the station's history, like it was just an interesting experience. For her and the other aliens, those 6 hours had been the most terrifying time of their lives. They had been certain they were going to die. But Dr. Kim was describing it like a minor inconvenience. She walked back to her laboratory in a daze. Everything she had believed about humans was wrong. Not completely wrong, but she had missed the most important part. For 20 years, she had studied human bodies. She had written papers about their strong hearts that could pump blood efficiently even in low oxygen. She had described their dense bones that could handle high gravity. She had explained their skin that could resist radiation and their organs that had backup systems in case of damage. But she had completely missed something much more important. She had missed their minds. Humans were not just physically tough. They were mentally designed for constant danger. Their brains had evolved to stay calm when everything was going wrong. They could think clearly and solve problems while their world was trying to kill them. Most amazing of all, they had learned to treat deadly situations as normal, everyday challenges. Dr. Veltara sat at her desk and began writing new research notes. Humans were not just survivors, she realized. They were a species that had made survival so automatic that they barely noticed when they were doing impossible things. Every other species in the galaxy came from safe, stable planets. When dangerous things happened, their natural response was to panic, hide, and wait for help. But humans came from a world where dangerous things happened every day. So they had learned to fix problems instead of waiting for someone else to save them. The difference was not just physical. It was in how they thought about danger itself. When the station's reactor started failing, Dr. Veltora had thought, we are all going to die. But Dr. Kim had thought what needs to be fixed first. When poisonous gas filled the air, she had panicked. He had simply held his breath and kept working. When radiation levels became deadly, she had frozen in terror. He had just accepted it as another problem to work around. This was what made Deathworlders truly dangerous, she realized. It was not their strong bodies, though those helped. It was their minds that refused to give up, even when giving up seemed like the only reasonable choice. Dr. Veltara began to understand why the Galactic Council had been so careful about making contact with humans, a species that treated disasters as routine problems was unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. They were not aggressive or violent, but they were fundamentally different in a way that was both fascinating and frightening. She thought about all the other alien species who would read her new research papers. They would learn that somewhere in the universe, an entire civilization had evolved in conditions that would be considered hell by everyone else. And not only had they survived, they had thrived. The scientist in Dr. Veltara was excited by this discovery. It would change how the galaxy understood life itself. But the part of her brain that still remembered being a prey animal on her peaceful home planet was deeply scared. A soft knock on her laboratory door interrupted her thoughts. Dr. Kim looked in with his usual polite expression. "Excuse me," he said. "I was wondering if there is a place on the station where I can get some food." All that excitement made me a bit hungry. Dr. Veltara just stared at him. He had just saved all their lives by walking through deadly radiation and breathing poisonous gas. He had fixed impossible problems while carrying unconscious aliens to safety. He had done things that should have killed him 10 times over, and now he was politely asking about lunch. That was when Dr. Veltara truly understood what it meant to be a